Going guys, Eric here with another video. So today, uh, what I wanted to talk about is about reason and logic. Now, we all have ideas of what reason and logic is, but how we can basically boil it down is that, well, if we look at like the modern connotative version of reason and logic, it's usually that um, you have one group that says they're reasonable and logical and that everybody else is irrational, or they can point out all the different ways that they're incorrect, right? Now that's cool, based on objective standards that might be right or might be wrong, but it doesn't mean that they're irrational. And it doesn't mean because they have emotions and they use their emotions doesn't mean that they're irrational either. What does that mean? Well, if we look at logic and reason is a method of finding the truth or um, getting something, right? So it's a method, right? It's a system. So if somebody doesn't have reason and logic, they're just doing whatever and they might get whatever outcome, right? Or they say that they're doing something to get here, but the method that they're actually using is incorrect, right? So it's a method, it's a system, right? So let's talk about some methods that we could use, or let's go back to that example of emotions. Well, you can either uh, use your mind to negate all biases and have a team with you that can address biases like the endowment effect and all those different behavioral economic uh, bias, right? And then using that kind of, I don't want to say collective brain, but like at least self-evaluation techniques, right? Where everybody's just being super honest and just seeing what they see, and then they present it to the group, and whether they're overconfident or not confident enough, they can be regulated, at least if you have a group that is full of highly competent individuals, and that's how some investment firms are structured in order to avoid being too overconfident in an investment and losing it, or not taking a big enough position, right? So it's a method of hedging personal bias, right? So you can negate that. Or you can program all your personal biases to make you find the correct answer, right? So if we program ourselves to find the right answer, or we have some biases that will guide us closer and closer to the truth and get that in our subconscious mind, or get these processes and these systems into our subconscious mind even better, because like when you use a system of reason and logic, right, and then it becomes subconscious, right, it starts, there might be some instances where it just out of the blue something rational pops up instead of just maybe just like a random thought or something like that, but you get a causal effect in a daydream, for example, right? So let's talk about a system of logic. So imagine if on the surface something was highly irrational, looked highly irrational, but got you to a rational result, right? If it's one for one cause and effect, right? I do this system to get this particular result, right? My system is not designed to get me, 1 plus 1 is 2, right? That's a system, right? Or we could have this random thing equals blank, and we could come up with some huge amounts of creative uh, decisions and thoughts and ideas that we originally didn't have before, right? And the purpose is to experiment and find new connections and new relationships, right? So this is what's called lateral thinking, okay? So lateral thinking is where you take something that has no connection to, like, imagine you have a problem, right? Now, you could use the traditional logical approach, the kind of deduction, induction, abduction, and abdeduction, sorry, and retroduction, right? You could use that. And then you have this other process, which is kind of creating solutions, like like taking random things, putting them together, and trying to connect them back to whatever you're working on. And so the majority of them will fail, but the ones that do work are the ones that fit with all those rational processes, like the deduction and induction and all those things. So basically, you have something super creative on the front side, and then you edit the ones that don't work out until you have the super creative one that works in the world. That's pretty cool. Okay, so let's start with that. Let's start with the first step, which is just having a bunch of stuff. No editor, right? No editing. No, this won't work. Okay, just go with it. Okay, so what you do is that you can easily look at this up on Wikipedia if you have a connection or whatever. You get a dictionary, and whatever you're working on, whatever you're trying to figure out, you're scrolling through the dictionary, and then you find a page that feels right. Like you can meditate before this if you want to like get your mind in that state or whatever, right? It kind of helps, right? Just so that it's not like, man, I'm looking in a dictionary to do something random and try to connect random words to this problem. That's not, you're kind of breaking the mental process, okay? Just get involved in the story, and then you scroll through, you find a word. Now that word is random, okay? That's random, okay? You find it, you look at it, and you try to connect that word in some way to the thing that you're working on. And by working backwards to find the connection, and you're establishing those connections, you find a creative solution, a creative connection, something that you would have never thought of if you just had to sit there and think of something, right? And that opens the bubble from here of what's possible to here, okay? And if you have this much to pick from versus just this, you're going to have a lot more solutions, a lot more stuff to look through than you originally had. And it's called lateral thinking, okay? So you look through a dictionary, you find stuff, find 5, 10, 15, 20 words, and connect it back to the problem and solution so you gain a new perspective, right? And then you can also do this with creative solutions, right? You mix words together, or you find pictures in magazines and you try to put them together in some random way in order to make a video or as an idea or a concept to do as a game or something creative, like where you build something, like whatever the problem is, whatever you want to do. Like if you had to, like this only works if it's not rule based, right? If you have to follow regulations and code, this doesn't work. But the thing is, if there's quote unquote no rules, right? Whatever that means. If you're in charge of a project and getting it done and making something creative and something that will grow, or it's a project or for a company, or you're working on something, or you're just doing something for yourself, this opens your sphere of ideas way out, right? And your connections will start to grow so that you start thinking less linearly, right? Now, just because, logic and reason is a very linear approach, a rational linear approach. Now, do you think there could be a rational unlinear approach? Now, in unlinear means that you're jumping around, and really, since it's unlinear, it's not really cause and effect, but you get the solution that you're looking for. Well, the process is linear because you go from the dictionary, you connect all these words together, and then you relate it to the problem, and then you get the creative solution, then you edit some of the stuff out. That's a very linear process. Now that process is on top of the whole weird jumbled mess, which is, the connecting of words, right? The relationships and stuff. So you have a rational meta model on top of a highly, quote unquote, irrational or non-linear system. Now, if you have a logical reason to do something irrational, quote unquote, that gets you the result that you wanted, wouldn't you consider that rational? Yeah. It's just non-linear. It just has a characteristic of not being coherent, but it still gets you the solution that you're looking for, or at least gets you closer so that you have a bigger perspective, so that you can use the rational approach and the linear approach to get her done, right? So the next one is also, this is why various, no, that's not, like what you can do is that also, you can do this in books too, where you go through and you look at specific passages, and when you come to a page that feels right, you read it, and you see, you ask about, oh, what about, because your subconscious is guiding your eyes to look at a specific words or sentences or whatever. So if you flip through a book and ask a question, and then it comes up with that, it'll probably give you a nonlinear result too, right? Now that might either be true or not, and then you just keep doing it until you find the thing that resonates, right? So you're allowing your subconscious to be free of restrictions of of this is right, this is wrong, right? So that you can come up with a good solution, okay? And so you do that with maybe 10 or so pages or 10 books or whatever, and then you have at least a grasp of something that you can try out. And if it's not true, fine, perfect, right? This is why certain words stick out to us than others, because our subconscious is guiding our eyes to them for some reason. And if we can find out that reason, we can maybe either fix a problem or augment our strengths so that we can actually benefit and fulfill something. So just because something is non-linear doesn't mean it's irrational, because the rationality can be over top of it, and you know the reason why, and you know the result, and if it gets you to that result, it's rational. Okay. So that was kind of, so this video I'm probably going to call it non-linear rationality. That kind of makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, so if you look up lateral thinking and creative process, and this can also happen, a cue of creative genius or whatever. I was seeing academics do this, but they basically ask you, what's all the different things that you can do with a brick or a pencil? What's the creative things that you can do with a brick? Oh, you could build building with it. Like, you can ground it up, turn it into paint. You could split them apart and put them on either side of the rails to stop a train from moving. Right? You can put that underneath a plane. You can drop it from a building to break the cement or whatever. You can put a thermometer on it and a string and drop it all the way down in the Marianas Trench to measure different aspects of the hydroplane or whatever. Hydroplane. That's not that's not the right use of hydroplane. Okay. Maybe I should shed that word in the dictionary. All right. So, yep. So just wanted to bring this to you. So non-linear rationality. Perfect. I'd love to hear your comments below. If you've ever tried this, just looking up random words in the dictionary relating to the problem, and also maybe looking random words up in a book, seeing sentences, how they look, and if they resonate, then that might be something that you'd want to look into because your subconscious is guiding you to those words. Or it just, if that wasn't true, and you just found those words and you just worked on that and you benefited in some way, it gives you some, if you don't know what to do, you at least have a method of at least finding something where you can, improve or do something different, which is cool. So I'd love to hear your comments below. See ya.